And pretty much what he said, paraphrase, he was like, hey, we've been telling Congress that we're short. They haven't done anything about it. They know we're short. It's in their hands now. And not to point blame at the VA secretary, but too little, too late. It's like, hey, it wasn't just a budget shortfall. Like, hey, I'm $10 short. Let me run to the ATM. It's a $15 billion budget shortfall. So something went wrong, seriously, on the budget and analysis side, which is not my expertise. I'm not a spreadsheet person. But for the secretary to point blame like that, I'm not really a big fan. We talked about, Jason and I talked about the bonuses that went out for the critical skill incentives. And pretty much what the secretary said was, I didn't know. Right. And it's just like, dude, that is a appointed, I don't know works for a specialist or a lance corporal, not the secretary of veteran affairs. But I don't know. It'll make me angry if I keep talking about it. So I'm going to kick it back to you, Jason.
Yeah. You know what? There's been too many calamities, too many big issue errors over the last 4 years. And look, not to be political, and I'm not, and I'm going to preface it with this, is that veterans issues are absolutely and should always be bipartisan, period. It doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter who's appointed. I personally am a fan of, it would be nice if the secretary was a veteran. I mean, the current one is not a veteran, and is only second one, I believe, in history to hold this position as a non-veteran, which is fine. It doesn't mean that veterans are smarter and could manage it. I mean, if people are people, I get it. But there's been too many problems this past 4 years. I could rattle off all of the different technical issues, all the IT problems that they've had. Huge, lots of money, billions of dollars in IT issues. You had the intent to files at the beginning of the PACT Act couldn't get filed. Their system was kicking them out. System went down. You could not imagine that there was going to be a big influx of people coming and your system crashes. The unaccounted for reconciliation of Social Security versus pension payments and the overpayment to pension people. By the way, those receiving pension are probably the most vulnerable of all of us financially. And now you're going to rip money back from them. Probably the wrong move. The mortgage issue with the forbearance agreements through COVID, and then they ripped that program away while people were starting that process and actually got foreclosed on because the VA ripped that away with no sort of contingency plan. I have seen no contingency plans for anything. And in fact, the VA secretary actually, in this circumstance of the $15 billion, was actually asked, not exactly like this, but basically, do you have a contingency plan if you don't get the funding? Well, not at this time. We're pretty much just focused on getting the money. Well, that's what led to all your other effing problems.
Yeah.
I mean, because you don't have any contingency plans. Your leadership team, who I have zero trust in, has no contingency plans. And so what happens, right? I am not a fan. And, at the beginning, look, I give everybody, look, run, do it. You say a good thing. Awesome. But when it's 3, 4, 5, I think 5 or 6 now, huge, big deal issues, there's a problem. I think he should have been replaced, honestly. But here we are. So the $3 billion is the VA is just sitting there with their fingers crossed. He's already said that he's leaving. He's already out the door. And to blame Congress now when he had given them about a week's notice before their summer recess that they're actually short, which was a contradiction to the budget proposal that he submitted 2 months before that. Then comes 2 months later and says, oh, we're short. Oh, by the way, Congress is leaving. So wink, wink, nod, nod. I don't know if some of this was planned craziness or not. but it seems a bit interesting that we're this screwed up. All right, I know that we're pushing time limits now.
No, we are good. And I'm glad you brought up politics and the VA. And one thing I've noticed, and this is just an indication, okay, of all these big problems Jason and I and a lot of other YouTubers will cover, in every instance, literally every single one, the VA secretary and the press secretary, and basically any word that has the Department of Veteran Affairs label on it, they all say the same exact thing. And that's what pisses me off more than anything, because now we're looking at themes and listen, I was psychological operations in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
This is my lane.
Yeah.
And I can see what they're doing. And they all say, you know, talk to me about the $15 billion shortfall. Talk to me about fraudulent DBQs. Talk to me about how doctors, VA doctors won't do DBQs for veterans. Whatever problem it is, here's the response. You know, this year since the PACT Act, we've served over 1 million veterans. Veterans are getting more benefits than ever before, end quote. Okay.
Yeah.
Seriously, look at any problem set.
Yep.
You will see that quote in there.
It will be buried in there. Yep.
That's what pisses me off, because it is literally what we call a theme and message, which is how to politically, you know, go for the course, par on the course, if you will. And it just really makes me mad. That's the last thing I'll say about that, Jason, unless that brought anything up.
No, it does, but I don't want to belabor this any longer. I'm sure that everybody agrees that, you know, nobody likes any of this.
Yeah. But hey, more veterans are getting more benefits than ever before. Everyone say hippie, yay. Okay. Now, looking at the cost of living adjustments that are coming, they will be final. It's usually like October, you know,
should be October 10th.
20th. Yeah. It's usually in that time frame. Jason, go ahead and talk about the cost of living adjustment, which are projections right now, but for the last, as far as I can remember, projections have been very, very close, especially when they're given in September. So what's it looking like for veterans right now?
Well, what's funny is, Clay, that you mentioned that, because you have the Senior Citizens League that tracks this stuff and does projections all the time. And they get pretty close, especially when they're a few months out, unlike the VA with their budget. So, which is funny that, you know, wow, people can actually figure this stuff out. Anyway, so over the course of the last 8 months, we have seen a rise in the projections into a fall. And we have been falling the last few months magically during the time period that is calculated for COLA, right? So for those that don't know, COLA is calculated